Welcome to USMNT Weekly on the Total Soccer Show, our regular focus on all things men's national team. Yes, we are in the midst of an international window and we are days away from another pair of World Cup warm-up outings for Pochettino's side. The US is hosting Ecuador in Austin on Friday night and then Australia at Dick's, that's Australia in the Denver Metro, on Tuesday to be more specific. We're going to look at those games and break them down and much more. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello, Mr. Taylor Rockwell.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. It's, 7 a.m. where you are in Las Vegas? I assume that's the ideal time to be awake and recording.
It's optimal. Yeah, I'm looking out of a window of my hotel here. It's quite active. It's quite active for 7 a.m. in Las Vegas. I'll say that much, Taylor.
Really? I feel like all of the publicity about Vegas of late has been that no one goes there anymore and it's a ghost town with tumbleweeds rolling through. Apparently not fully the case?
Not completely, but yeah,
Okay.
I'd say less foot traffic. But Graham Robson's not here. Hello, Graham. How are you?
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I'm thankful for that, frankly. Despite the fact that it would be fun to meet up with you in Vegas, it sounds like you're having a great time. We've got sultry Ryan Bailey today with your voice. Yeah, is that from riding the roller coaster at New York so many
That's
times?
right.
That's
yeah.
where that's come from.
Lots of New York roller coaster and some Coca-Colas last night, basically. This is the result of this voice.
Coca-Cola with nothing else in them. I think we should take a moment to praise Ryan for no one on this show has ever had to wake up as early as Ryan has to be prepared to do this episode. Just a Herculean heroic task that no one else has ever had to endure.
That's correct, yeah. So Joe Lowry, how are you?
I'm great. I mean, Ryan, if someone were to do that on a regular basis, say every day of every week, I think we would give them a lot of credit. But since that doesn't happen, I think you in particular deserve all of that credit. Also, come on, guys. Are we surprised that people out there walking around in Vegas at 7:15 in the morning? Those slots aren't going to slot themselves. Somebody's got to pull the lever. Come on.
Those Arnies, I like to call them. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, by the way, is where you'll get our bonus content. You'll get bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server. Some of the cool kids? No, all the cool kids hanging out on our Discord server. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, please and thank you. And as a reminder, we are on the YouTubes. Come and find us there. Hit like and subscribe. Link in show notes. Let's get to our USMNT action, shall we? Hey, Taylor, you excited? It feels like it was only yesterday when it was an international break before, and here we are again.
Not that you're projecting or anything.
Ryan's latent enthusiasm for the international window returns. I am excited. I was excited for this camp to begin with. I was excited for the roster once it was named and named in detail at that. But even more so after I've taken a little bit of time to look at the opposition the U.S. is going to be playing in Ecuador and Australia. Neither of whom has lost in over a year. Not a bad run, given that they've both been doing World Cup qualifying. Ecuador with 5 wins and 6 draws over that time, including a win over Argentina. I think that they have a bit of fluidity in their approach. Sometimes they're in a back 4, sometimes they're in a back 5. Australia, a bit more hard-fought, hard-working, some pressing, some defending. But I think both of these represent really strong opponents for the United States if they are truly tuning up for the World Cup, which is what they are meant to be doing. So credit to U.S. Soccer at the very least for scheduling these.
Yeah, this is the window we've been looking forward to, right? After the Gold Cup and the January camp and the last camp where we kept on saying the next one. It feels like there are fewer question marks over this roster than there has been really at any other point in 2025. That's not to say that there aren't a few key players missing, but we know why those players are missing. Tyler Adams isn't here because his partner is giving birth soon. Ricardo Pepe is out injured. So, these are question marks we know about, whereas, the last window, it was question marks over Wes McKennie and what's happening there, and we didn't really know what was going on. So, I'm excited to see this team finally get on the field together.
Yeah. Joe, do you share that sentiment? Obviously, we've got 2 teams who have qualified for the World Cup. Well, I suppose 3 teams in the US as well. So it's going to be a strong window. Yeah. Did we do it?
Yeah, we did it. Let's go. All
Okay.
we need to do is get that bureaucracy down, and we'll host every World Cup and qualify for every World Cup. I love it. I am slightly less sure that, as compared to Graham, that this is going to be really close to whatever that U.S. World Cup roster is. I'm struggling to know exactly how much to weight what Pochettino says and to trust in all of that all the time.
Yeah.
He has followed through on a lot of things, but man, the sheer number of injured players for this window, or players who are unavailable, does make it, I think, a little difficult to tell exactly how much carryover, especially in central midfield, this group is going to have moving forward. But I think I largely take Graham's point. And to echo Taylor's thoughts, these are really good friendlies. U.S. Soccer consistently has scheduled very, very good opponents when they have control of the scheduling. For this team, Ecuador, right now, when you look at them in the ELO ratings, which I think tends to be a little bit more accurate than the FIFA ratings, but I suppose it's different strokes for different folks. In the ELO ratings, Ecuador, 9th in the world. This is a team that not just beat Argentina recently, they took Argentina to penalties in the quarterfinals of the Copa America. Now, this is not a totally full-strength Ecuador team, but I suppose the same goes for the U.S. And Australia, for their part, they're going to present a very interesting task on the field for the U.S. They're 29th in the ELO ratings. Both of these teams, by the way, ahead of the U.S. in that rating system. So strong opponents. I think this is going to be a really helpful window. And I, for one, am glad to go back to Ecuador that they're getting that game first. We saw in the last window when the U.S. played South Korea and Japan. Japan is the more talented of those teams. You get Japan second in that window, and you end up playing Japan's rotated team. You get Ecuador second in this window, if that were to be the case, and you get Ecuador's rotated team. You get them first, like the U.S. is getting Ecuador first in this window, and you get effectively the best lineup that they're going to be able to put out there with this roster, barring any unforeseen circumstances. I think that is ideal for the U.S. this window.
Okay, fantastic. Graham, should we dig into the opponents a little bit more? A focus on Ecuador. I was delighted to learn that Enner Valencia is still playing at 35 years old, by the way. That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Not only still playing, but seems to be very important for this team, and maybe a bit of a weak link in this team, but I'll get onto that later on. Because overall,
an important weak link. Yeah, go on, sorry.
That's right, that's how to word that, yeah. But overall, Ecuador are very strong at the moment, right? So they finished second in CONMEBOL qualifying, which put them ahead of Colombia and Uruguay, and most notably Brazil, who didn't have the greatest of qualification campaigns, but nonetheless finishing ahead of Brazil deserves a mention. And the thing that stands out most about Ecuador right now is how few goals they concede. They conceded just 9 in 18 World Cup qualifiers. Incredibly, they haven't conceded in any of their last 5 games. That includes a 1-0 win over Argentina last month. And going even further back, they have conceded just 1 goal in their last 11 games, going back to that Copa America quarter-final defeat that Joe mentioned to Argentina, which they lost in a shootout. They technically did not lose that game. So they are looking good right now. That 11-game run is the longest in Ecuador's in their history as a national team. So in the past, the US might have had a natural superiority over Ecuador. I think Ecuador, like 15 years ago, were ranked about 80th in the world. I don't think we can say that now. Ecuador will be a serious test. They are missing a couple of key players for this camp, most notably Moises Caicedo has been left at home. As far as I can tell, he doesn't have a serious injury. He's just been carrying a few knocks to start the season, and obviously played in the Club World Cup with Chelsea and has just been given time to rest. And then the other big omission is Piero Hincapie, who of course has just joined Arsenal. He is out injured. I think he picked up an injury on his debut. So maybe Ecuador will be slightly diminished, slightly weakened for this camp than otherwise would be the case. But yeah, this is still going to be a serious test for the US.
Yeah. Taylor, what in your view is the biggest test that they will pose? Is it the strength of backline, the challenge they will pose to scoring goals, I suppose?
I think for me, it's the variety of ways in which they can hurt the United States and the ways in which they seem to be capable of playing. And that can be direct through Enner Valencia if the backline is high. They can try to play into him. Not that he is the most fleet of foot, but they have plenty of youngsters who are pretty speedy around him. So he has the kind of guile and strength and a little bit of speed. But then they have youngsters that can then kind of advance beyond him if he plays them in. They can play some good possession football. They can play very hard-nosed, run you into the ground football, as we saw in World Cup qualifying, specifically against Argentina. And so I think, and even just in the kind of fluidity of their approach, again, sometimes a back 3, sometimes a back 4. It feels like they kind of put numbers in different areas at different points. Usually, when in possession, it looked like a 2-3-2-3, roughly, if that's the way you want to describe it. With Moises Caicedo, very often the kind of linchpin of that midfield in pulling strings, dropping deep, all that stuff. So his not being there does help the United States. Kind of a bummer, though, because if it's a friendly, you want to see them going up against the best possible opposition, so you have to figure out how to beat them. But I think it's just the different looks that Ecuador can throw at you means that I don't think you can really, certainly not take the day off, but I don't think that you can be fully comfortable in any one approach. Yeah. It's why I kind of want the U.S. to play a full-strength team in both of these games, because I think against Ecuador, I think they're a stronger team with more talent and more depth and more variety to their approach. Against Australia, who, again, are very, very good, we'll talk more about them, they're also maybe going to sit off at times and invite the U.S. onto them, and the U.S. haven't looked particularly good at breaking down bunkered opponents or defensive opponents, especially ones that have qualified for the World Cup and look pretty strong. So I think both of these present opportunities for the first team to get some really meaningful reps. But Ecuador, the first game, is the one that I would, if we're going to split time, I want the starters in there and ready to go from the jump.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the approach. The Moises Caicedo lack of call-up for Ecuador, I think, is sort of telling of how club coaches and national team coaches all over the world are trying to figure out this balance between how do you bring in players so that you actually get to have them in your roster as an international manager, and how do you make sure that you're not running them into the ground. The back and forth with Caicedo was basically Ecuador's manager, Sebastian Becachese, said that Chelsea said, nice he said situation, that Caicedo is hurt, and then Caicedo goes and plays the entire game and scores against Liverpool, and everyone's like, oh, well, that probably wasn't true. And so it is very much what Graham said, that there's some load management there. Poch has been the load management king so far. I mean, like, he's left dudes at home with a hangnail. So I think we will see a lot of rotation from the first game to the second game of this window. But I completely agree, Taylor. You should run out your best players, like whatever you think that is, against Ecuador, because they're a really good team even without Caicedo. And that Caicedo is their best player, so they're immediately not as scary as they were before. But even without Caicedo, Ecuador are going to have the most talented player on the field, and the best player on the field, in William Pacho in the middle of their back line. Like, they're going to have one of the brightest attacking players who would probably start for the U.S. and Kendry Paez on the field for them. Pervis Estupiñán at Milan. Like, there's real quality in this team. There's the Pedro Vite sort of tier of players where you'd be getting USMNT call-ups almost certainly, but maybe not a guaranteed starter. It's not as if this version of Ecuador is like so obviously better than the U.S. player for player. But they're going to have a ton of talent on the field. And the U.S. have not been playing great ball since the 2022 World Cup. So I think the way I would frame this Ecuador test is that it's a chance to face off against a team that has a lot of quality, that can absolutely hurt you if you're not at your best. And we need to see if this U.S. team can be at their best.
Yeah, there was a good article by Jack Lang for The Athletic. Of course, we've had Jack on the show before. And it was about Ecuador and their rise as a soccer nation, because it's been pretty dramatic over the last few years. And you're absolutely right, Joe. Even without Caicedo and Nkapia, you go through this team and it is like proven performers at the elite level in Europe. And with Enner Valencia, he's important for this team. He delivers to a certain extent for this team. I think people in Ecuador just look at that position and think, man, if we just had an elite level centre forward, this team really could go on a run at a World Cup. They still talk about the fourth game, getting out of the group and getting into at this tournament will be the round of 16, won't it? Because the fourth game will be the round of 32 this time, right? That's right. Yep. So they want to get to the fifth game. That's like the big target for this Ecuador team. But yeah, they're a really interesting soccer nation right now. Independiente, one of their biggest clubs, has become a bit of a talent factory for them, and they send a bunch of players to Europe. So they're very much on an upward trajectory. This is a difficult time to face them.
It certainly is. Two more things. We've been talking about Caicedo. If I want to give massive credit to Becachese, the manager of Ecuador, I would say, and I'm not sure this is the case, but Caicedo picks up his second yellow in that final qualifier against Argentina, so he gets the red card, is suspended for their next official game, which would be the first game of the World Cup. And part of me does wonder if there's an element of like, let's see how we do without him in some friendlies and figure out how to play without him. So maybe there is a little bit of necessary experimentation from Ecuador. But even without him, even without Nkapia, you all have already outlined it, there's just a lot of talent, and not just the names that you've already said, but players like, it just feels like it's the next generation, that like 2 years from now, all of these dudes are going to be playing for Champions League teams or stronger Champions League teams. But Alan Minda is a 22-year-old for Cercle Bruges. Kendry Paez is an 18-year-old for Strasbourg. Nilson Angulo, 22-year-old attacker for Anderlecht. Angulo especially was a problem against Argentina on the left wing. Has a lot of speed, has a lot of creativity, likes to take people on. But all three of those gentlemen have, like, I think double-digit caps at this point for Ecuador or thereabouts, and have scored some goals and played some minutes, and it feels like for having such a young team, they still have plenty of veterans. They have the kind of ideal blend, I think, for a team that wants to be strong but also get better at the same time.
I know Ryan wants to talk about Australia. Can I just say how dumb it is that you can get a card suspension that carries over into the World Cup? Like, that is,
yes, you can.
That is so stupid. That is actually one of the dumbest rules in this sport. If we ever get a listener question about what we would change, I'm bookmarking this mentally right now, because there's no reason that should carry over into the World Cup. Carry it over into World Cup qualifying for the next cycle, of course. But that is, like, mind-bogglingly idiotic. I'm done.
Oh, yeah. I think you're quite right there, Joe.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay. No, you're welcome.
That was nice.
So, Ecuador, undefeated since last September, as Taylor outlined, a formidable opponent. Taylor, how about Australia? What kind of opposition do you think they are going to pose for the US? Perhaps a more difficult one to break down?
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I think Australia are going to be very good. Maybe not as good as Ecuador, but I think they pose lots of problems in their own way. And it's not just that they've had the run that they've had. It's that along that way, they've beaten Japan. They've beaten Korea. They've beaten teams that the U.S. has struggled against or struggled to look good against. They've gone on the road in difficult situations and gotten wins and draws. And it feels like they are a battle-hardened team. And so they will sit off, as I said, but also they will occasionally do a sort of it's like a 5-2-3 defensively, but the 2 and the 3 are in
Pentagon.
I guess it is a pentagon, yeah. But they stay really tight, and so you have to play around them. You can't play through them. But then the wide players will press aggressively in moments. It seems to be there are certain pressing triggers for when the ball goes wide that they will pounce. But once you bypass that, that's when they will drop in and kind of go to a more conventional 5-4-1 or thereabouts. And so they just have different defensive looks that, to me, are testify to a lot of experience playing together, a lot of kind of patterns of play that have been established. And they're missing some players that I think of as kind of reliable starters for them. I didn't know that they had the pathway to San Pauli, but they have 2 or 3 guys playing in San Pauli. Jackson Irvine won't be there for this one, but is one of a couple that is already playing in the Bundesliga. They have talent, certainly not at the level Ecuador do, but I think what they lack in individual talent, they make up for in sort of team-wide connection and chemistry.
Yeah, I messaged Sasha Pisani for some insight on Australia. Now, Sasha works for the A-League. He's helped me out with stuff before and knows all about Australian soccer.
This is Graham's alias, right?
Yeah. Sasha.
Another thing that Graham writes, yeah.
I have written stuff about Australian soccer in the past. But anyway, Sasha told me that since Tony Popovich came in roughly a year ago as the manager, he replaced Graham Arnold, and things have basically really improved in that time. It seemed like at that point under Arnold that Australia might miss out on automatic qualification for the World Cup. Obviously, they turned that around. They finished second in a very competitive group, which includes Japan, who they take 4 points against in 2 games, and then they finish ahead of Saudi Arabia, which is it's not a great Saudi team at the moment, but nonetheless that's something. And they're on this 10-game unbeaten run at the moment. And Sasha was saying that Popovich has really brought this group of players together and galvanised them. There's a much a greater collective togetherness now, and there's also a sense that there's new talent coming through after a period of stagnation. For Australia as a national team, there's a good number of players starting to perform in Europe, young players. So Adrian Segicic at Portsmouth, who actually hasn't been called up to this squad, and that's been a topic of discussion because he's scoring for Portsmouth at the moment. Jordan Boss at Feyenoord, Aaron Kunda at Watford, Alessandro Serchati, if that's how you pronounce it, apologies, at Watford, Max Ballard, NEC Breda, and the Eredivisie. So there's this new group of young players that are coming through. There's also a bunch of A-League. He's done a Poch, Popovich. He has brought in a lot of domestic-based players to fill out his squad as well. Apparently that's been really successful. The only reason they are not in this squad is the A-League season starts on, Sasha was telling me, on the 17th of October. So that's the reason they've not been included in this squad. So similar, I guess, to how there's a bunch of MLS guys not in the US squad here because of the playoffs. But in terms of their style of play, I think you nailed it, Taylor. They do use a low block quite a lot. Sasha was telling me that's been quite... there's been some criticism of that, and apparently there have been hints of Popovich trying to be a bit more expansive in some recent games. But by and large, they don't want a huge amount of the ball. They're hard to break down. That will obviously be a challenge for the US. And then they try and play quickly on the counter. And one player that I do know loads about is Martin Boyle, who plays for Hibs, is a bit of an icon for Hibs. Born in Aberdeen, could have played for Scotland, plays for Australia. He's a very, very important player for them, and he's got pace to burn. So we have seen at times in the past the US be vulnerable in defensive transition. I think Martin Boyle is a player that the US are going to have to keep an eye on.
Graham, there's one name that's surely missing from this squad. Another player who was born in Scotland, who we've loved for Australia. The Cum Dog. Where's the Cum Dog?
He's playing in India these days. I don't know if he's on the radar, but
context,
he's like the top...
Context, please, before we get banned from YouTube.
Jason Cummings, nickname that he gave himself, the Cum Dog, who played at the World Cup and famously told Messi after Argentina knocked Australia out of the tournament to win it for him, which I love that story. He's a character.
And Messi thought he was like a pitch invader who was there for a photo, I'm sure. Yeah.
Where's my bodyguard? Very good.
It's going to look like I'm reaching for a taser right now. And I am reaching for a taser right now. But thank you, strange Australian man, for your kind words.
Very good. Yeah. Joe, what kind of, how different will this game be from the Ecuador game, do you expect?
So different. Like, I think we have somehow, even though we've talked about a low block for a while, I think we've still undersold it. This Australia team just played New Zealand twice back in September. New Zealand, they didn't have more than 45% possession in either of those games. Go back to the summer, and in their 1-0 win over Japan that Taylor referenced earlier in World Cup qualifying, 31% possession, 29% against Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia in June as well. This team is going to sit wildly deep. I do not think they're an incredibly talented team. The U.S. has more talent on paper. Australia are going to be like that fly that just you can't seem to get away from you. And actually, that's a bad example because in this case, the U.S. would be moving towards the fly because the fly is going to be sitting in its own third. So, I mean, like, it's going to be a lot of block breaking or attempted block breaking from the U.S. It's probably not going to be a pretty game. I think there's going to be a lot of frustrated tweets at halftime. I think it's going to be a really useful exercise, though, for the U.S. and for this group to figure out how to deal with these kinds of situations. They have not done that very well. It's hard when you don't have the best players in the world to break down a low block. I'm really curious to see what this game's going to look like.
Most animals in Australia are trying to kill you, so maybe there's a different animal to a fly.
Yeah, it's the death fly, actually. That's
the death fly.
Yeah.
Oh, the death fly. Yeah, get him in the outback. Yeah,
Crikey.
Very good. Crikey. Taylor, any more on this US opponent, Australia, or should we take a little breaky?
Sometimes you got to fight a kangaroo. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, sometimes. Have you?
I mean, once or twice, for sport.
You can probably do that in Vegas.
I bet you can.
Yeah. Seems like that sort of place.
Don't fight a kangaroo. They will rough you up pretty good, unless they're hurting your dog, and then you have to. I'm sure we've all seen that.
We've all seen that video. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back, why don't we pick our 11s for the Ecuador game? Join us then, listener. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to USMNT Weekly. Hey, Taylor Rockwell. What do you say?
Hi, Ryan Bailey.
We do some starting 11s or some preferred 11s for the Ecuador game coming up in Austin this weird weekend. What are you thinking? How would you like to line it? If you were Pochettino right now, sit back in your chair, look at a lemon, and pick your 11.
Got to. And I do have it on good authority that Joe Scally said he was more of a lime guy, and that's why Joe Scally has been left out of this roster. So you heard that here first.
I don't know whether we should get into this. Have you seen like the online rumours about why Joe Scally's been bombed out of this squad? Again, I have no idea whether this is like if there's anything in this at all.
Do we need to lawyers before you go on?
No. It's not that bad.
Is it citrus related?
No.
Okay.
Apparently, in his last camp, he was messing around on a golf cart at the training ground. Have you seen that, Joe?
Yes, I've seen that, and not to the point where I would feel like reporting anything on that topic. But yes,
no, absolutely could be complete nonsense. But it's
what?
People
So
mention it every
basically,
so often.
Pochettino has no time for nonsense. 0 days since our last nonsense.
He hates
Mauricio
golf.
Pochettino. But I mean, that is in keeping with what he said, right? That like national team camp has been too loose. There hasn't been enough kind of rules and rigidity to it. That feels very Bielsa. I feel like Gabriel Ince, if somebody was messing around on a golf cart, would, I don't know, fight the golf cart. So maybe Pochettino not liking tomfoolery shouldn't be surprising. I think we also won't be surprised when Chris Brady starts in goal, right? We all had that. That's consensus.
Mm-hmm. So we're just never going to do our lineups then.
Okay. I think I will jump ahead to say when we're talking about like players we're most interested to see, which is what we're going to do in the third segment, goalkeeper is one of those areas for me because my assumption is that it's Matt Freese, even though he was evaluated for the concussion. I assume that if he's good to go, he's fine.
He played over the weekend, so.
I think he is Pochettino's starter right now, but we haven't seen Matt Turner called in since the move to the Revs, where he has been playing. So it would be the opportunity for Turner to be like, oh, no, he is the starter. We just wanted him to get reps. But that kind of discredits everything that Freese has done in that time. So my assumption is Matt Freese starts in goal. But I think it's a really interesting one to keep an eye on. Does Freese get both games? I think that sends a message. Does Turner get one, in which case it's still open? But I think the starter in the first game, I'm giving the edge towards Matt Freese.
Yeah, okay. I don't think it's gonna be anybody but Matt Freese for both of these games. I think the like head injury question mark that he suffered against the Red Bulls seemed like it could have an impact, and then he gets called up, and then he starts versus Philly over the weekend, plays the whole game. Like I don't think there's anything there, and Freese very much is Poch's number one. Like he gave Freese the first game of that window back ahead of the Gold Cup in those friendlies. and then Turner had a bad game against Switzerland, and then it was freeze all the way through the Gold Cup. It was freeze in September. I don't think we have any reason to believe that it wouldn't be Matt Freese, because remember, Poch doesn't have any relationship with Matt Turner, right? I mean, the Pochettino makes it a point not to talk to these people outside of camp. He doesn't have any past working relationship with Matt Turner. I think he's found Freese as being his guy. So obviously, never say never, especially with Mauricio Pochettino. But it does seem pretty likely to me that Matt Freese will get both of these games in goal.
Okay, Graham, is that your feeling too? Yeah.
Yep, Mr. Freese.
Mr. Freese, indeed. How about your centre backs, Graham? Who would you put in there?
Yeah,
how many do you have?
Well, that's the question. So my framing of my entire lineup here is I want to see the team, particularly for this Ecuador game. It might be a bit different for the Australia game. So this is the strongest lineup that I believe is possible. I've gone for a back three. I want to see it again. It might not be the solution. There might not be a solution with this squad. But after the last game, I want to see it against a stronger opponent here. Obviously, Japan rotated a lot for that last match. So I've gone with Ream. I've gone with Richards. It's a toss-up for the third centre-back spot. You already know where I'm going. I'm going to give it to CCV just because he plays on the right side of the back line for Celtic, and so I know most about him there, and I think he'd be relatively comfortable there. But honestly, it could be, you could convince me on anyone in that third spot.
Okay. Taylor, will you convince Graham on anyone in that third spot?
Probably not. I had the back three. I had it as Mark McKenzie, mostly because Joe always extols the virtues of Mark McKenzie, and I tend to quietly disagree, but not for any specific reason other than the few times I've seen Mark McKenzie play for the U.S. It's always like, I guess he was passing in the vague direction of a player. So maybe he's a little bit sharper this time and it looks a little bit better. But I think it could be McKenzie on the left with Ream and Richards partnering him. It could be Ream on the left, maybe Richards central with CCV on the right. But I gave the edge to McKenzie to make Joe happy because that's what it's all about.
Aw. Joe, are you happy?
It is wild how mediocre all these options are. I will say, outside of Chris Richards, Graham, remind me, sorry, did you have Ream in your back three?
Eraser right
I had
there.
Ream,
I don't know how
yeah.
I feel about that.
Man, I don't know. It's hard for me to get excited about this part of the field. It's hard for me to get
I didn't say I was
really
excited.
latched. No, I know that. It's hard for me to get latched on to the idea of a back three when you're just putting a pretty mediocre international soccer player on the field. I recognize that that's not the whole equation, right? The equation is, do you get better as a team if you put a third center back on the field, giving you some additional defensive solidity, it seems very likely, and also liberating the players around you to go and be a bit further forward and maybe have them start in slightly more comfortable, and in the case of, say, Christian Pulisic or all of the other 6 or 7 half-space players that are in this team, do you make them a bit better by letting them start in a more narrow position? Does that help their game? So it's more of a complicated equation than just, do you want an extra center back on the field or an extra central midfielder? But man, it would be so much nicer if there was, say, Noki Banks, who was called up and I actually believed in or was excited by. A player, Banks, who's getting real minutes for Augsburg now in the midst of something of an injury crisis for them at center back, who looks good, who sure looks better than a lot of these guys. As far as I'm concerned, I'm very frustrated that we didn't get to see him in this group. I'm now just going to say my players. I have Richards. I'm also thinking back three. I have Richards. I have McKenzie. And I have old Timmy in this center back pool.
Old Timmy. Okay, very good.
Joe's so sad that he can't pick Noki Banks. He scored at the weekend as well.
He did.
So,
Honestly, I don't understand what we're getting out of another 2 Tim Ream starts and 0 Noki Banks starts. I recognize that it's a difficult moment to try to integrate a young player with 0 senior national team appearances ahead of a World Cup. It's not impossible, though. You're allowed to do that. You're there's nothing that prevents you from doing that other than your own, the voice inside of you that says that's not a wise decision. And ultimately, I just disagree with that. It doesn't even have to be a start for Banks. It's a call-up. It's 10 minutes off the bench to see out the Australia game. And then you come back next time out and maybe you give him 45 or something. There's a way to do this that doesn't involve throwing him to the Wolves, which I think we all sort of want to see because we're not patient and you only get 12 international games a year or whatever. So it feels like we need to see him now. And we kind of do, I guess, is really what I feel like. So I am very frustrated about that.
All right, Joe. Who's in the middle for you?
In my midfield, my double pivot in this game is Aiden Morris or James Sands, parentheses, I don't care, is what I have written down in my notes, and Weston McKennie. Those are my 2 midfielders. Actually, excuse me, Tanner Tessman also belongs in that pot with Morris and Sands. That is my bad. Morris, Sands, Tessman. That's sort of the question, right? Roldan's also an option there. But the question is, which of these guys is Poch going to go to? He's never had Sands in camp before. He's had Aiden Morris in camp, but then he was sort of exiled for a time, and now he's brought back in. Same with Tanner Tessman, although that exile, I believe, was a little shorter, or at least we saw Tessman, and he's been performing at a very high level now over at Lyon, I think. Which one of those guys is going to be? I don't know that a ton separates those players from each other. I think Tessman is the most intriguing of that bunch based off of pure talent, so I'll go with Tessman. But I think it is very much an open question of who starts in midfield. And even McKennie. Like, I don't know that Poch views McKennie as a lock for his lineup either. So I have him as a lock in mine. I don't know that Pochettino has him in his.
Okay. Taylor, who's in yours?
It's tricky. I have Weston McKennie, and then I had the three that Joe said. I'll go James Sands just because I've really enjoyed what I've seen from St. Pauli. But I also don't know if he's going to do enough in camp and in his game to kind of elevate that position. So I also wouldn't be surprised if it is maybe Tanner Tessman starting there, who I think has a little bit more versatility on the ball. So I think I would like to see Sands to see what he can do and to see if he can deputize for Tyler Adams, but I won't be surprised if it's Tanner Tessman instead.
Okay. Graham?
Yeah, this is the most, or for me anyway, it's the most fluid part of the squad of the field for the US. So whereas in other positions I would like to see, I'd like to see 2 starts from Matt Freese. I'd like to see 2 starts from Chris Richards, and if there's a unit there, like let's get some chemistry and familiarity and reps from them. In the midfield, I'd like to see a good amount of game time from all 4 of the players that have kind of been mentioned. That's Weston McKennie, James Sands, Aiden Morris, and Tanner Tessman. I've gone with Tessman and McKennie just because I think those are probably the 2 players I'm highest of that group right now. Tanner Tessman seems to be flying in Ligue 1, so I think it's probably worth rewarding him for that now. And just in terms of his profile, seems to be, a little bit more rounded, perhaps. So yeah, that's where I've landed.
I do think one advantage of the back 3 shape is that it makes you feel more comfortable about a Tessman-McKennie double pivot. Where if you're playing in a 4-2-3-1, let's just say, I don't know that I trust Tanner Tessman and McKennie to be positionally disciplined enough, or for Tessman for his defensive instincts to be sharp enough, although I do think they've gotten a lot better, right? Players are not stationary in their development. Like, we do see improvement there from Tanner Tessman. But I think if you're in a 4-2-3-1 against Ecuador and you roll out that double pivot, which might be your best attacking double pivot that you could possibly have in this group, I don't know that you feel good about how you're going to be able to deal with Valencia and Paez and these other Ecuadorian players running right at you. But when you have cover in the back 3, I think you feel a bit better about that. So that is one plus for this back 3 structure in that I think even I'm projecting forward to a World Cup moment where, let's say the U.S. is playing in Australia in the World Cup. Maybe you roll at the back 3 and you drop Tyler Adams from the team. Taylor, sorry, I should have told you to cover your ears. You drop Adams because he can't bring much of anything on the ball, and you put in Tessman, who very much can, and maybe you're cooking with gas a little bit against a lower block. So that's something to note maybe for the future.
Okay. For those keeping track at home, in terms of recording time, 35th minute is when Joe was officially dead to me.
Got it.
Well notated, Taylor. Thank you very much. Taylor, how about the wide players, the wing backs, if you will, in this setup? What are you thinking?
Wingbacks, I had Jedi, and then I'm going to go experimental and throw Timothy Weah in there. I don't think it will be Tim Weah. I think it will be Alex Freeman, but I just want to see what Weah can do, especially because he's been doing more defensive things. And rather than be mad about that, why not see if he can do it for the U.S.?
I like that. That's not what I've got written in front of me. I had Freeman. Quite frankly, because, I guess we just really haven't seen Weah in that position.
Never.
Obviously, does it at club level all the time, right? So I should have thought of it. But yes, I want to see that. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, me too. Okay. That's exactly what I have written down. Jedi, one note, not sure if he's fit enough, hasn't been playing 90s for Fulham. So if we don't see him against Ecuador, I don't think that's because Poch believes that Arfson is better, although, again, never say never. I think it's because Jedi has not been playing full soccer games and is probably not fully healthy right now.
Okay. Joe, would you like to complete your lineup, your top 3?
I would love to. I have Christian Pulisic as my right half-space attacker in that 3-4-3. I have Malik Tillman as the left half-space attacker, and I have Folarin Balogun as my striker. I will say more things about Malik Tillman in the third segment, so I'm just going to be quiet.
Ooh, spoiler alert. How about you, Taylor?
I have Christian Pulisic, Timothy Tillman, and Folarin Balogun.
Timothy Tillman. Wild card, baby.
Is that not a surprise? We all had LAFC's Timothy Tillman in there. Malik Tillman is starting for me. I think I've enjoyed. I saw what I. Let's try that again. I enjoyed what I saw from him against Leverkusen this weekend. He seems to be betting in really well there. I think is not quite going to live up to like Florian Wirtz levels of expectation, but I think has already quieted some of the doubts that I had about him going there and being the heir apparent. He seems pretty confident. He seems in pretty good form. There's just that thing of like when a player is like tries a shot from distance, but then also like the next time has just a very subtle layoff pass where they're kind of doing what they want to do in that moment. It doesn't feel like he's forcing anything. It doesn't feel like he's trying to do too much. Now I'm kind of ruining Joe's bit here in terms of waiting for the third segment. But
I'm
I
going
think
to say
Tillman
something
and
that's
Pulisic,
different from that, so don't worry about it.
Okay. I think not Timothy Tillman. Malik Tillman and Christian Pulisic together would be very fun, and Florin Balogun ahead of them is the only striker option, although I know Graham might have somebody else involved.
Do you, Graham?
No, I don't. No, as much as I like Hadji, and I like Big Pat as well, let's have Balogun in this team. I've gone for the same front three. Maybe a slightly different interpretation of how they would shape up, because I would like to see Pulisic playing the role he's basically playing for Milan right now. I know there's a bunch of fluidity there where with him and Tillman they will shade out to either side anyway and leave Balogun in the middle. But yeah, I'd like to see Pulisic have that freedom. Joe, did you say, I might have picked you up on this wrong, did you say Tillman left half space and Pulisic right half space?
I did, yes.
Is that just because you prefer Pulisic in the right side?
I think Pulisic is maximized on the right because he's right-footed, and when he's on the left, he drops to get the ball from the center back and then takes 12 touches and then plays the ball back to the center back, and it just destroys the flow of the attack. It's fine. Like he can play on the left, he can win games to the U.S. on the left, but I just prefer to see him be more direct, and because he has to be on that right side.
Yeah. Pulisic on penalties. He's got one to make up for in his recent outing.
Get him on it.
Very good. Excellent stuff. All right, let's take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to focus on a few players we are very interested in watching in these games. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to USMNT Weekly. We are looking forward to the big games against Ecuador and Australia. Taylor, you excited? Yeah? Feeling good?
I'm very excited. I like that lineup that we just came up with. I don't know if that's what we'll end up seeing, but I think it could be really fun. My question for the group, before we get to individual players, Joe mentioned there's lots of injuries, there's lots of absences. Does the 11 that we just named beat this starting 11? Zach Steffen in goal, so Joe's already nodding. Yes. Serginho Dest at left back / left wing back, if we go with the back three. George Campbell, Jackson Reagan, Joe Scally as my three sort of center backs in there. Yunus Musa as your right wing back. Johnny and Tyler Adams as your two central midfielders who will let nothing go through but also won't pass the ball. Gio Reyna and Georgi Mihailovic as your more advanced playmakers, and then Ricardo Pepi ahead of them. Does the 11 that we just named comfortably beat that 11?
Yes, because that 11 has Christian Pulisic.
Fair.
I don't think there's anyone else in that level. This is the missing players, right? Or the players who aren't in this roster.
I thought you were going to say yes because the lineup that Taylor just named is playing with 10 players because Gio Reyna's in that team and he's not a soccer player. He's a concept of a soccer player. The U.S. lineup that we have built, I think we were all the same across the board except for one center back and one center mid, right? I mean, so we were basically aligned there. I think that lineup beats the U.S. lineup you just named, Taylor. I'm not sure it is comfortable, but I think you play that game 10 times, they draw 3. The U.S. lineup that we built together in the last segment probably wins 4, and maybe the other U.S. lineup wins 3 or 5 and 2, something along those lines.
Okay. That's about where I am. So there is a little bit more depth if some of those players fully exist or aren't injured. So I think there's still reason for optimism even aside from this team. But within this team, the individual players, I mentioned Freese and Turner. I think that will be a fascinating one, even if it is Freese's outright. If he has a howler, maybe that door opens right back up. Some of the midfield fluidity we talked about with different players who could play in different areas. But for me, I'm just going to go pretty basic. Jedi Robinson being back in this team. I don't know how much he's going to play, but I drafted him. He's here. I'm going to roll with him more because I miss seeing him in a strong U.S. team. I think he elevates the team on his own. I think he has that much talent and ability. I've made the argument before that I think he might be the most talented player in the U.S. pool at present. There are other contenders for sure, but I really enjoy a U.S. team with Jedi Robinson in it. I hope we get to see him for at least 60 minutes or something in one of these games.
He's top of my list as well. Taylor hasn't played for the US in 2025, which if I'd thought about, I knew, but still when I sort of thought back to the last time we saw him, that's quite a fact, isn't it, that we haven't seen him at all this year. And I remember when we spoke about him in March, he misses out on that camp. And at that time, I called him the US's most important player, which I think was true at the time and kind of, panned out in that camp. That's probably Christian Pulisic now, just because he's taken a big step up, at least at club level. But Jedi is still such an important funnel into the final third for the US. Obviously, stupid sexy Max Arsene has been playing that role for much of this year and has improved. Like the last camp, I felt probably the best about Arsene as I have this entire year. But he's just not up to the same level, right, as Jedi. And so I'm interested to see, as much as I'm interested to see like the individual performance of Robinson, I'm interested to see the knock-on. Like, how does it affect other areas of the team? Does the midfield all of a sudden look a little bit better when they've got an outlet down the left side, to relieve a little bit of pressure? Does Pulisic, I've always thought his relationship with Jedi has been pretty good. Does Pulisic all of a sudden have that understanding back with Jedi down the left side? So yeah, I'm interested to see him back in the team. Are we going to get a whole lot of minutes from him? I'm sceptical just because he hasn't played a lot this season, but as long as it's not at the cost of his fitness, I'm hopeful that we will.
Okay, very good. Joe, who are you excited to see?
I'm excited to see Malik Tillman. Although maybe the way I would frame it is I'm interested to see Malik Tillman with that level of uncertainty in my voice, because I have not been as hot on Malik Tillman probably ever, I guess, as maybe most of the rest of the folks on this show. And I don't know that I've been quite as warm on his Leverkusen performances as Taylor has been so far. I'm still waiting for him to look like he totally belongs as a above average player at the Bundesliga level. Like, I'm still waiting for that. He's had some good showings, no doubt about it. And Taylor, I do agree with you on that. He's only played 90 minutes twice so far this season. Maybe part of that is because he's coming off an injury when the year actually starts. But that's not a great sign for someone that you bring in to be a key player, that they're consistently one of the first players to come off the field. I don't find that to be terribly encouraging, and I still haven't seen what we talked about from Malik Tillman as being a real benchmark for his success in this season at club level, which is consistency. I'm still waiting to see him consistently impose himself on games in the final third. I haven't seen that, and I'm a little skeptical that we're going to see it. But one thing we know about Malik Tillman is that Pochettino loves this guy. He called him one of the most talented players in the U.S., like as a nation. He called him, quote, a very special talent. He said he's, quote, in love with him. And there's like some language translation stuff there, of course. But like he really likes Malik Tillman as a player. Can he deliver for the U.S.? Is he going to emerge as the other starter across from Christian Pulisic if and when we see the U.S. in a back three shape, right? We're imagining this is going to be a 3-4-3 if we see it, right? Not a guarantee. We absolutely could see a back four, which would leave you with more fluidity in the attack potentially, or more available attacking players that you could add to your team, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. But if the U.S. run back that 3-4-3, one or both times in this window, that leaves you with one striker. That's going to be Balogun, you'd have to imagine, unless Big Pat does this thing. And then two guys in the half spaces. One of those guys in the half spaces is going to be Christian Pulisic. Who is the other one? There's a lot of options in this roster. Poch called in a ton of these guys. He called in Malik Tillman. We talked about him. He called in Alex Zendejas, who he also really likes. He called in Weah and Haji Wright, who can both play in those areas. He called in Diego Luna, and he called in Brendan Aronson. Luna's been a key player for Pochettino ever since January camp, and Poch really seems to identify with Luna, his story, his personality, all these things. He values that. He likes Zendejas. All that to say, I don't think it's a guarantee that Tillman plays in both games or is like a starter in both of these games. And that you should be, after making the move that he's made, after having impressed Pochettino so much this summer. I'm not there on Tillman. I'm curious to see if Pochettino is in like sort of 6 to his valuation of the player. And if that means we see him, what do we actually get from Malik Tillman? What did the U.S. get from Malik Tillman in this window? Because I don't know that question is as easy to answer as certainly Malik Tillman would like.
Okay. Graham, just me who's excited to see Big Pat come on in the 70th minute and score the winner, which I feel like he's destined to do.
I'm always excited to see Big Pat. Every opportunity I get, I grasp that chance. Yeah, given how much Poch has used him in previous camps, he's been involved in pretty much every camp he's been fit for. We will see him at some point over these two games. So I think he can be. I know there's a variance of opinion on Ajman, but I think he can be that sort of third striker wild card at a tournament. If Ecuador in particular is a step up in quality, certainly relative to the opposition in the Gold Cup, then yeah, I wouldn't be against seeing if he can cause his usual chaos and mayhem against them.
Excellent stuff. Excited. All right. Any other players who were interested to watch for whatever reason?
I'm curious to see if Weah gets used, because I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think Poch has been terribly enamored with Tim Weah, and where that might be if he does actually make it onto the field. I think Weah playing as a wingback is possible in this window, as we talked about already, in a way that it hasn't been possible before. or at least it's viewed as a possibility by the coaches in a way that it hasn't been before. Weah, we talked about it. He's danced all over the field for his basically entire career, but he's only ever been a wide player for the U.S. Now, Poch has moved him from the right to the left, citing that one-eye dominance thing that seems like nonsense, but maybe it matters. I don't know. And then after the last window, he was sort of complaining about how Weah hasn't been playing as a winger for Marseille and about how that's a problem. Well, if you want to solve that problem and you've called up Tim Weah again, it seems like a solution would be, stick with the back three and give him minutes as a wingback, where I think he would be a very useful player for the U.S. I think he could be a better player at that spot than Alex Freeman. So there's potential for an upgrade, and you sort of get the attacking combination benefits of having Weah on the field. You get his tidy defensive work back in your own third as well. I think he is able to defend in that spot. I'm really interested to see where exactly Weah fits into Poch's plans, or if he fits in them at all.
Yep. Very excited to see where Tim Weah fits into this team, where he plays, how many minutes he gets. But I think we do have to take a moment to mention the man, the myth, the legend, Haji Wright. Graham has been singing his praises for a good long while now. He is in this squad. I think could do a number of different things for this team and play a number of different roles. Graham, do you want to talk about Haji Wright at all? I'm gonna force you to for the second time in this episode. If you don't want to, that's fine.
No, I mean, I'm interested to see what Poch views him as, because obviously he's flying for Coventry right now. He's in the form of his life. But he has very much been a penalty box presence for Coventry this season, and that's different to the role that he was playing for them last season, where he was very much a start on the wide area, not a traditional winger as such, but on if you were to plot him on paper, he was a winger. What does Poch see him as? Is he a centre forward, given how well he's doing at club level, or does he still see him as a wide option? We didn't get any evidence, unfortunately, at the Gold Cup. I thought that was a big blow, actually, to not have him at that tournament to get some evidence. So, yeah, I'll be excited to see what Poch does with him.
Fantastic stuff. All right, I think that's USMNT Weekly Lead. We will, of course, be reviewing these games when the time comes on the feed. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your excellent analysis as always, sir.
Thank you all very much. I'm not muted anymore.
Yay! Joe Lowry, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
We now have to leave in the edit the bit where you were muted, Taylor, to make that make sense. That's awesome. Great.
I think there were multiple points in this episode where I was muted.
There was definitely one when Joe was talking about Tillman playing for Leverkusen.
Dude, it makes me really happy, though, because I kept interrupting Joe, and then I think the timing worked perfectly, even though I was muted, that I was like, oh, man, Joe's just going through. I'm interrupting him. But I did say, I'll add in, Joe is totally right about everything he said about Malik Tillman. I just think my expectation was so low that him being not noticeably bad for them, I'm like, all right, that's better than I thought it would be. Now let's see if it improves from here. So I think Joe is right with his skepticism and concern. I'm just optimistic that he will be able to come good. So there, Joe Akai Banks.
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much.
Thank you, sultry Ryan Bailey.
Oh, yeah. Back on the feed very soon, sultry Ryan Bailey and the gang. But for now, listener, bye!